Stop sharing my screen. All right. And I'm Izzy again. Um, if you need me, you can find me in chat. So this is Kinkability 2, Kinky, Sexy, and Disabled. We had an event last year, amazing, and it's coming back at you. We have wonderful panelists tonight. They are Vaughn Eaton, a professional sex educator, Adriana Garza, a queer disabled kinkster, Andrew Gurza, Disability After Deck podcast host and speaker, Lily McBride, kink organizer and promoter, Rachel Rose, a certified sex and relationship coach and educator, and Maisha, an all around lovely kink educator, sexuality educator, wonderful human being who has been doing work with Disability Pride for years, and we love her. So take it away.
Well, you're making me sound cool. Thank you, Izzy. I paid her a lot. Can you tell? Anyway, I just wanted to say hi to everybody before we get going. And thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you. I want to emphasize that this is an event for people who are 18 and older. So if your children are in hearing range and you don't want them to hear phrases like stimulated to climax by electrical probes, you might want to send them out of hearing range. To my speakers for this evening, I just want to remind you, because I didn't send that out in an email, that we do have ASL interpreters. So if you could not kill them by speaking too quickly, I'm sure they would appreciate it. And they can tell me if I'm wrong. Anyway, and then aside from that, again, emphasizing what Izzy said, we have a wide range of material. We're going to be speaking candidly. We're probably not going to be crass unless you want us to be. But if we cover anything that is difficult for you and you need to step away, please do. We're not judging anybody. If you have different viewpoints, that is fine. We are here to answer questions and to grow together and to learn together, and it's great. Having different viewpoints, just please be tolerant. And we just want to endorse a very positive, consensual, legal activities between adults. So please always seek consent with your partners before you begin engaging in any activities, and we'll discuss what that means a little bit more tonight. So our format for the evening is we're going to have Vaughn first talking about what kink is and why people do it. And then Andrew is going to follow up by talking more about his crazy, sexy, cool, kinky life. And then we're going to bring on a panel to just talk back and forth. I'll address questions to different people as we go along, but we'll be answering more personal questions about kink. And then at the end of the evening, we're handing out party favors. So anybody who is interested in getting a copy will get kind of a guide to kink, but not really how you should do it. Just a guide to different ways that you can think about it. And I'll tell you more at the end. Anyway, I'm going to turn this over to Vaughn now. Thank you so much, Vaughn, for being here.
Hi, thank you so much, Maisha. Thank you all so much for having me. I feel very honored to be coming and speaking to you all about something that's very near and dear to my heart. So I don't have like a PowerPoint or anything. I just kind of wanted to chat through what kink is, kind of like a Kink 101 sort of conversation to start the conversation. And I'm also very aware that there are many people on this panel with me who know the same as and probably more than me. So it really is just like a one-on-one just to kind of get our brains thinking about what it is. So first of all, like, what do we mean when we say kink? What does that actually mean? What does that word mean? So a lot of people will use the term kink interchangeably with like BDSM, but it is larger than. I would say BDSM is like a part of kink, right? But kink, if we look at it through the lens of the cis hetero patriarchal white supremacist society that we live in, it's any kind of sex that's like not normal, right? So it's like the opposite of vanilla. And the reason that I bring that up is because I want to unlearn that viewpoint, right? So I want us to kind of think about it as like, what can normal be? So kink is ways to engage with our sexual pleasure, our intimacy, our partners in ways that give us agency. So the like core tenet of kink is consent, right? So, and it should be for all sex, right? But we live in a rape culture. And so that's not the case a lot of the time in what you would consider traditional or vanilla sex. And with kink, it is foundational, right? So it is a way to utilize consent to navigate our needs. And one of the other core tenets that's typically involved with kink is power dynamics. So some kind of power exchange is typically going on of some kind, but it is freely given or received, right? So there's a lot of negotiations that go into kink practices. And typically folks will have multiple conversations prior to actually engaging in a scene. And it's also not always about sex, right? There's lots of ways to engage with kink that don't have to do with touching each other at all. So there's lots of different ways to engage. There, you can engage with it virtually, physically, and there is a long history of kink communities and queer communities being in solidarity with one another. So I think it's really important that we're talking about this at Disability Pride, because kink communities have shown up for queer communities throughout history. So it's really important to our history as LGBTQ people. So yeah, so why do people engage in kink? So there's lots of different reasons why, for anything from it's fun and I like it, to I have to have sex this way, to processing trauma. So a lot of the rhetoric, I think, and I think this is changing. Let me say that this is changing, but a lot of the rhetoric in public media and in the ways that we talk about sexual assault survivors is like, the trauma manifests in like sex aversion, like you're very fragile, you don't want to engage in sex anymore. It's like kind of an eggshell situation. But actually, a lot of people heal from sexual trauma through kink. And I'll speak for myself as like a survivor myself. Kink is one of the many ways that I process trauma that I've been through, right? And that's true for a lot of people. It kind of gives you the ability to practice certain dynamics in a safe and controlled way that kind of allows you to reclaim some of these things that you've gone through in life. So that's one reason why my people do it, to kind of process trauma. Other reasons is that they are just naturally interested in other ways to form intimacy with a partner. So power exchange is a good one. Like there's like service dominance, where like you give your submissive tasks throughout the day, right? Like that's not inherently sexual, but it's still kink. And there's people in neurodivergent communities that use kink as a way to like get things done during the day. So there's all kinds of reasons why people engage in kink activities. And the main thing to really focus on is, as long as it is mutually agreed upon, consensual, healthy, then any reason to engage in kink is a good reason. And so you don't have to be, you know, traumatized. You don't have to be a professional. You don't have to like have the like BDSM encyclopedia memorized to engage in kink, right? But you do need to be able to negotiate healthy boundaries. You do need to be able to express your wants and needs. And if you can't express your wants and needs, you need to be able to be willing to practice expressing those wants and needs, right? So a lot of times people first get into kink, maybe you don't really know how to say what it is that you like and what you don't like. And so in the sex ed world, we call that taking calculated risks, right? So the way that we've taught consent in sex ed up until the last 3 years is really like rigid, right? Where it's like, this is what yes looks like, this is what no looks like, period, right? And kink really allows us to explore the concept of consent in a way that makes sense for you. So I'll speak for myself. I don't like to negotiate my boundaries verbally. It's very triggering for me to discuss my boundaries verbally, which is a huge barrier to practicing kink, right? So how do you do that? You navigate that by communicating boundaries through physical touch. And the only way that I can do that is by engaging in acts and seeing whether or not I like them. And then that is a way to engage in consent as long as you negotiate that with your partner, right? So it's just kind of like getting in touch with the ways that we communicate sexually and not the ways that like we're taught to communicate sexually. It's like, what is your communication style for engaging? And you don't have to do kink to do that, but it is a really good place to do that. And it's like, when engaged in appropriately, it is a very healthy way to engage with that. So the one thing that I did kind of want to cover is like, what is not kink, right? So kink is not, forcing your wants and needs onto a partner through dominance, right? So like one thing to look out for when you're getting into the kink community is doms who will try to dom you without ever having a conversation with you first. Like they'll slide in your DMs and be like, hey kitten, I'm gonna do XYZ, right? That's not kink, that's just abuse. And a lot of times people who are early in the community are not always aware of those red flags, right? And it's like, oh, like this person's trying to dom me, cool, like I'm being accepted. And it's like, no, that's a red flag. Someone is engaging in kink with you before ever having a conversation, right? So that's not kink. If someone's trying to do a scene with you or act something out with you or impose rules on you that you haven't disclosed, that's not kink, right? The other thing that is not kink is when you are in a relationship with someone already and you don't have a kink dynamic established in that relationship. So say it's your long-term partner and you came to this wonderful panel and you're like, okay, I'm interested in this. And you tell your partner that you're interested in it. And then the next time you go to engage, they just start doing all this kinky stuff with you. That's, again, not kink, right? That is a red flag because you haven't had a conversation. So anything that anyone is trying to get you to do without discussing it with you first is not in the category of kink. And the reason it's important to say that is because a lot of the pushback in the larger culture about kink is that, oh, it's abusive. Oh, these people are mentally unstable, which is ableist rhetoric anyway. And, doms are, crazy people that just want to hit people and they're mean and bad and they're taking advantage. And, subs are like mentally like delayed. And it's like, that is the rhetoric that we hear. So there is a huge overlap between disability rights and kink because there is this idea that people who engage with kink are crazy people, right? And actually, kink is one of the most engaged and like meticulous forms of intimacy and communication. And you don't have to be neurotypical or like mentally well to engage with it. So it is definitely an ableist rhetoric from the larger society. And people who want to take advantage of that rhetoric will sometimes act out those scenes as a way to say, well, this is what society thinks kink is, so if I do that, I'll get away with it. And it's like, no, right? So people within the kink community know, and I want you all to know that anybody doing anything without your permission is not kink. And even beyond that is not sex, is not partnership, is not friendship. These tenets, these core tenets of kink extend beyond kink, right? It's just one of the many ways we practice consent in our lives. So anybody doing anything that you don't like is not someone that has your best interest. So the other last piece I'm going to talk about in my last 10 minutes is the different like styles of kink. So like I said, kink is sometimes used interchangeably with BDSM. And that is true, but it's not the whole picture, right? So there is, and Maisha's probably going to talk about this later when she goes over the workbook, but there's lots of different things you can do, and there's lots of different styles. So, and this is probably common knowledge at this point because it's been out for so long, but like 50 Shades of Grey is like a bad example, right? Like that's like, it's not all like bondage and impact play, right? It's really bad. Yeah. So, if you are someone who doesn't like to engage with pain in a sexual context, that doesn't mean that you can't engage with kink. There are lots and lots of ways to practice kink that don't involve pain. And it's really just about finding like the style of kink that works best for you, that meets your needs, that respects your boundaries, that affirms you. And it's a great way to like not only explore your sexuality and your gender, but also intimacy with a partner. Because like I said, kink isn't always about sex. Sometimes it's about emotional trust. Sometimes it's about rebuilding the ability to trust with another person, you know, so there's lots of styles. So you don't have to do like whips and chains to participate in kink. Stereotype. So yeah, that's like my spiel. And I have a couple minutes left of my time. If anybody has any questions for me about like Kink 101 before we get into like other folks get into more specific things, yeah, feel free to ask me a question if you have them.
While we're waiting for questions to come in, Vaughn, I have questions for you. My first one is, does kink always involve sex?
That's a great question, and it does not always involve sex. That is a great question. So yeah, it doesn't, kink is not necessarily inherently sexual. Like I said, and it's not in 99%, it's not going to be in 99% of cases, like, you know, every single kink dynamic is not going to work like this, but one of the main aspects of kink is like power exchange. That is like kind of what makes it different from other things, is an exchange of power. And so you can exchange power consensually in many ways. And it doesn't have to be sexual. Just like intimacy can take many forms, right? There's platonic intimacy, there's emotional intimacy, there's physical intimacy. And there's actually a lot of really good educational content right now on TikTok, which sounds crazy, but there's a lot of good stuff on there. If you're filtering out the trash, there's a lot of good stuff on TikTok. And there are a lot of creators right now talking about how kink is accessible to people who are asexual and sex averse and like sex repulsed. It is an accessible way to engage with your body as a asexual or sex repulsed or sex averse person. So definitely doesn't have to be about sex all the time.
Okay, I have another one I can throw out there. Oh, wait, we have a question. How do you get started in a kink lifestyle? Is there a certain way?
That is a great question. So this has a different answer depending on who you ask. So I would say, how do you get started in a kink lifestyle? First, you have to kind of determine what is a kink lifestyle. What does that actually mean? And it means different things to different people, right? So a kink lifestyle could just be engaging in some kink practices in your monogamous relationship. It could be finding a kink community. It could be, you know, an aspect of your polyamory. It could be your profession. So it really depends on what you're kind of classifying a kink lifestyle for you. So that's, I guess, a long way of saying no, there is no certain way. It's like, how do you engage with it? Well, you engage with it the way that works best for you and what your needs are. I think a good place to start is to do some like research, but not like heavy research, you know, like just kind of like familiarizing yourself like with, there's lots of good literature by queer folks about kink. There's lots of great kink resources in the city, kink educators all over Philly. something that is kind of looked down upon often, which in our society, which is extremely beneficial, is you can get started in kink through sex work. If you want to explore that and you don't have a partner or a friend or anybody you feel safe doing that with, like hiring a sex worker is a perfectly valid way to do that. There's also like sex therapists who can kind of guide you in that direction as well. So yeah, whatever your comfort level is, or even just like reading like a little pamphlet of like, how do I talk to my partner about engaging in kink? So there's lots of different ways. So thank you for that question. And then this next question I love. So any thoughts on kink in healing non-sexual trauma or touch starvation? So I actually talked about this at a panel that I did at Haverford College in 2019, which feels like it was literally yesterday, but it was almost 2 years ago because COVID. So I think it's a great way to do that. And there are so many reasons why people experience touch starvation. And I think this is especially pertinent now with COVID, right? I'll say because of my intersection of trauma and because of my cultural background, I am very touch averse, right? I'm just like, no, I don't like hugs. I don't like handshakes. I don't like none of that, right? So kink was a great way for me to do that. Like, how can I safely engage with someone physically that doesn't feel uncomfortable? So definitely. And I think a lot of trauma that we experience has a degree of a loss of control. Trauma often has roots in a loss of control, a loss of agency, and a loss of power. Many, many, many sources of trauma we can kind of trace back to that root cause, right? Our choices were taken away, our needs weren't met, we didn't have power in a situation. And because one of the core tenets of kink is power exchange, it does kind of give you the opportunity to re-navigate agency. And I think with non-sexual trauma, whether your comfort level is more submissive, more dominant, or somewhere in the middle, gives you an opportunity to reframe power and control for yourself in a healthy way. So I definitely think it is an amazing way to do that. I would definitely recommend it for sure for healing of all kinds.
Do we have questions from anyone else?
Did you have another question, Maisha, you were about to ask?
No, I was just asking if we had any questions from anybody else, and I'm really glad to see Caitlin felt that answered their question. So. All right, thank you, Vaughn. And feel free to chime in later if you want to.
Sure.
Andrew, yes, you're getting props on the chat. Andrew, I am hoping you can tell us all your dirty little secrets now.
Wow, that's such an open-ended invitation to tell you all the things. Again, much like Vaughn, I didn't write anything down. I just was like, let's have a conversation. My experience of kink, listening to Vaughn kind of made me think, wow, a lot of stuff I've done is kink that wasn't sexual at all. Because of my disabilities, I never felt, I'm a wheelchair user, power chair user. So a lot of these sexual kink spaces I could never access, and I can still not access. I'm in Toronto, Canada, which is not so far from you, but it's many of the kink spaces here are not accessible. So I never felt like I could enter them, and I never felt like I was included in them. So I would see people going to leather events, and there's a big gay bar in town here called the Black Eagle, Toronto, which is like a big queer cis male bar usually. And a lot of men would go there to be sexual, and I wanted to go, and a lot of the spaces are not, that space is not accessible. So I was like, well, I guess I can't be a kinkster. And I thought, again, much like Vaughn alluded to earlier, most people think kink is like, oh, you get whipped and flogged and chained and all those things. And so I was like, well, I can't engage in any of that, so I guess I can't be kinky. But then one of my friends a couple years ago, I did a talk in Vancouver, Canada, and he took me to a little bookstore that also doubled as a sex shop. It was very cute, and like it's a thing we do in queer community. We turn bookstores into also sex stores. So I went there, and I saw my first harness that I had never seen one. And I'd seen men in photos wear them, but I had never worn one myself. And because I thought, well, I can't get a harness on. I have disabilities. I can't even dress myself. How would I ask somebody to like put a harness on? So we go to this bookstore. My friend's like, "Do you want to try it?" And I was like sure, sure. So I tried it on, and I looked in the window of the sex shop, like the not the window, sorry, the mirror they had there, and didn't have a shirt on, and I started to cry because I was like, wow, this is the first time I've been able to like express my sexuality visually because I can't undress and I can't like show my bits to everybody freely if I wanted to, with consent. Of course, I can't do that. So this is a way for me to like show that. And I remember that moment very vividly of like sitting in this bookstore and the poor owner was like, "Why are you bawling in a corner?" And I was like, "Because I finally get to be kinky." And he didn't understand why, but I was so happy because I got to experience that. Another aspect of kink that I have started to play with and I've played with for a couple years in my sexual life is puppy play. I like the idea of puppy play because I get to just go out of the headspace of being disabled and I get to be something else entirely, and I get to be, it's a different thing, and I get to also play with the fact that I have a disability as a puppy. And so there's a photo of me which I can maybe find. I might be able to find it if I look hard enough on my hard drive. But there's a photo of me. I'll see if I can find it. Of me. Yeah, let me get it. Oh, hang on 1 second. Am I allowed to share things, or would I have to send it to one of you?
You can definitely share.
Okay, let me share my screen now and I'll find. Okay. Can everyone see that?
Puppy.
So this is me in a puppy hood from like 2017. My friend brought this over and I put it on and I was like, that's really cool. And it's something that I again want to explore because, and I think the connection to disability for me has been like, how do how do I connect the animalistic side of myself and the disability side of myself together? So I jokingly call myself a powered puppy because I'm in a power chair, and it's kind of funny. But it was like a playful way to like put these two worlds together that aren't supposed to go together, because we see a lot of kink and we see a lot of men in harnesses or pup hoods or stuff like this, but we never figure out how disability or ableism is incorporated in those spaces. Um, and when we think about kink, we also think about like cisgender, white, muscular men, at least in my experience, like kinky queer men who are super muscular and super like cis being kink. And what I don't love about that is that they emulate this idea that in order to be kinky, you have to look like, that guy from 50 Shades of Grey, or like you have to look like this perfect version of what a healthy kinkster is supposed to be. And what I love about, from my experience of disability and kink, is that I'm also chronically ill along with being disabled. So I get to put kinks in there like service. I get to put kinks in there like, using my language to show somebody how much I care about them. That to me feels like a kink, um, in a lot of ways. And I like that my disability has allowed me uh, to express kink in a way that is not normative and is not expected in those communities. I do wish, though, that more of the community physical stuff was accessible, and I wish that we could understand that disability has a place in kink and disability deserves to be there. And like I said in the last presentation, if anybody was at that one, um, all you kinksters are going to become disabled one day if you're not already, and you're going to want to have good sex. So why aren't we finding ways to incorporate our disabilities into kink. Like for instance, in kink, at least in kink male spaces that I see a lot of men, cis men, talking about dungeons and slings and power play and all this stuff. And I'm kind of left because I'm like, as a disabled person, I have a sling. As a disabled person, I have a hoist. I have all these things already available to me. Why couldn't we easily turn them into a kink thing? Um, Also, I think it's important to note when I produced, I don't know if everybody was here from the last one, but I'll just say it again. I produced a book with my sex toy company, Handy, all about sex and disability. And in the book, people told us that kink helped them relieve their chronic pain and helped them relieve their disability pain because they could control the pain and they could control the narrative. So I love that because if they're able to alleviate some of their disability pain, why don't we do that more? What I love about kink, for me, as a severely disabled person that needs a lot of help with a lot of things, I can use my kink to say I'm here too and I deserve to be here, and it allows me to control parts of my life because in much of my life outside of my sex, I don't have control. I'm told when to get up, when to go to bed, what I'm wearing that day. I'm told who's getting me up and how they're getting me up. And I have to just tacitly accept these things to have my day, which is fine and I don't mind. But kink allows me to explore different parts of myself, like domination, using my voice rather than my body to tell somebody what I want them to do to me, forcefully with consent, of course, and consent and love and all those things. But I also get to play with the idea of submission as a disabled person because I don't, in my whole day, I have to tell somebody every little thing that I want. It's nice sometimes to be with a partner, a sexual partner, and just say, fuck it, you decide what we're doing. I'm going to just lie here and let you do things to me with consent that feel good, and I'm not going to have any say in it. And that feels really nice because I don't want to have to make the decision. And one of the things that I did to show my kink, because like I said earlier, I can't put a harness on all the time, and I can't do those things all the time. So I'll find the picture of me. I'm sure I have it somewhere. I think I have it somewhere. I got a tattoo of a Leatherman in the style of Tom of Finland on my chest because I was like, I can't wear a harness all the time. I can't be kinky all the time like I want to because I have care needs. If I get this tattoo on my body, I can always look down on it and know that deep inside all this disabled mangledy body, there's a kinkster in there. And so I have it on my chest as a reminder that like my disability and my kink are intertwined, and also because we don't see imagery of hot disabled kinksters out there in porn and in comic books and in like kink culture, at least in my experience. All I've ever seen is white cis men being like, yeah, I wear a harness and I smoke cigars and I have a cap on and you can call me sir. But I'm like, it goes so much more than that. And disability has allowed me to explore the moreness of kink and the like possibility within kink to incorporate bodies that are not ours, that are not the same as we expect them to be, rather. And so that's what I love about it. I think it's been a very transformative thing for me to say I'm a kinkster. And I'm wearing a shirt right now that says Kinky for my friends at What's the Safe Word. They sent this to me and said, would you wear it? And I was like, of course. So I love them. And, you know, I've talked with them and Papa Amp and Daddy Christopher about kink. And I've been able to have conversations with them about that and disability. And, you know, having conversations with other kinksters and bringing them into the experience of disability and having them go, I never considered that before, shows me that we have so much work to do in the kink space to include disability. And I'm really proud to be a small, tiny part of that. Again, I didn't write anything down, so I don't know if I have much more to say, but I'd love to have questions open up about disability and kink while we're chatting. Or Maisha, if you have any questions for me that we could chat
Always talk about sex and kink and disability. And
I know you can. I know. I'm fully aware of this.
all right. How about talking to attendants. How do you communicate your needs to your attendants?
My kink needs?
Mhm.
Uh,
Like when you want to get into a harness, or and it might not even necessarily be an attendant, it might be a partner. Sorry, I'm talking too quickly.
um, that it is a great question. And I have had my attendants put on the harness. I kind of just say, because they know I work in sexuality and disability, sometimes I'll just say, I need this for work. Can you put this on me, please? And I need to do this for a talk. They don't need to know that I'm fucking my sex worker in an hour and I want to be a big slut for the next hour. They don't need to know that. I can just say it's a work thing. And many times, with my work with Handy, my sister from across Australia has emailed me and said, "Could you do a video where you're like wearing a harness and talking about sex and kink, please?" And I'll have to say to my workers, "Can you come in and like put a harness on?" So I get really comfortable just saying what I need, because I'm not I'm not sexualizing them. I'm not bringing them into the sexual experience. I'm simply saying, I need you to do this for me as an assistive thing. Thank you so much. Get out. Like go now. I'm not making them feel uncomfortable because I'm making it very much about the care. Um, but I think a lot of attendants are uncomfortable when it comes to not only kink stuff, but just sexuality in general, because they are trained to do care. They're not trained to talk about like helping Andrew masturbate. They're not trained to talk about, those things. And so it is uncomfortable for them. But I try to make it really relaxed and easy and quick. I don't want to keep them there too long. I want them to do the thing I need them to do and get out, because I know it's the boundary that they don't want to cross.
Thanks. Yeah, we have a lot of conversations about stuff like that at work. How do you talk to your attendant about things that you want to do because they're working for you and it's not the other way around?
I mean, I think we also need to give the attendant care workers a space to be uncomfortable. And I think the problem is because we don't talk about it ever, this tension builds up and this weirdness is always there. And so I think we need workshops where attendant care workers can sit and voice, hey, that time Andrew asked me to, help him get ready to masturbate. That was weird. I don't know how to feel about that. I did it for him, but I felt weird about it. Like, they need space to voice that, because I think if they don't, it just festers. And if they don't, they feel like they're denying me something. And I don't think it's fair to put somebody in a space where they're not comfortable. And I think they need to be given a space to figure out, why are they uncomfortable? What is maybe the ableism behind their discomfort? Let's talk about that. Let's give that a name. Let's give it a voice, instead of just saying, oh, you're a fucking ableist. Fuck you for not helping me. Let's like talk about it openly so that we can dispel some mythology and make it less weird.
So are you saying this is our next project together?
I mean, I'm down for it if you are.
Sweet. Let's make this happen. Okay, so I did have one other question, actually. When we were talking, you said that service is something you like to list as one of your kinks, and somehow that ties into your disability. Could you elucidate? Could you describe that a little bit more?
Elucidate. That's a big word for right now.
Sorry.
Wow. I like that though. No, I'm here for it. Maybe I have a big word kink. I don't know. I receive service from caregivers all the time. They do things for me all the time. And so I love to be able to, both sexually and otherwise, show service for somebody. Like, I love the idea of being able to give somebody pleasure, because people assume because I'm disabled, I have to receive pleasure. Someone has to get me off. Someone has to make me feel good. And then that's all that they can do. And I can't, I'm not an active participant in what's happening. So by me giving service and being a service back, I love saying like, what can I do for you? Can I help? Can I like pay for your groceries? Can I help you with this? Like, I like being able to use, I don't pay for everyone's groceries, but I like being able to like do things for people, because that way I can say like, see, I'm not just this disabled guy that sits on a log and gets all this help but doesn't give back in some way. Like, I like being able to give back in certain ways and be there for people and be like a sounding board or a listening friend, or like something that may not be physical but is totally also like a part of service.
That's very helpful. I'm just wondering if, and I'm thinking again about a work conversation that only where I work would it ever come up. But is there anything that your disability has allowed you to do that you wouldn't be able to do if you weren't disabled?
Porn. Porn. I mean, I could do porn if I wasn't disabled, but I did an adult video recently. Well, not recently, like almost 2 years ago now. Wow, it feels weird. 2 years ago with my friend who is also my sex worker. And I got to do that because I made the case for we don't have enough disabled porn. There's not enough. I want to do it, and I'm offering myself to do it, to put it on tape so someone can see it and be like, wow, disabled people are sexual. Look, there's proof. And so I like to think my disability made that possible. Like, otherwise, I'm just a run-of-the-mill white guy who wants to fuck other dudes, which is fine, and totally I support that. But also, like, I love that my disability was used to make a point, and I love that, like, somebody used that porn that I made. Somebody from a sexual health clinic in somewhere, I think in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, emailed me after I did that and said, "Can we? Oh, Rachel, hi. Can we? Sorry." Said, can we use your video as like for one of our sexual assignment discussions and show it to like talk about the need for sexual disability? So the fact that it's been used in like an educational context is really cool, and I'm really proud of that because, and I think my disability is one of the only reasons why that happened. And so my disability has also allowed me to show other non-disabled people how hot disability is. And like I love giving them that light bulb moment of like, oh, this disabled guy in the wheelchair is really good at that thing, that kinky thing, or likes to do this. I love those moments that it gets me to show them that, hey, disabilities are hot.
Thanks. Yes, I would agree. Especially if none of you have seen, or if any of you haven't seen any of Andrew's clips, I highly recommend going to check them out because they are fun. They are sexy. They are just really informative, and they're great to watch. So
I mean, I'm just gonna put it out there. I do have a copy of the porn if anybody wants to see what I'm talking about. So with consent and love, just hit me up later, and I'm happy to send it over.
do you have any contact information?
I will put it in the chat, yes.
Okay, great. Does anybody else have any questions for Andrew before we move to the panel? Or do any panelists have anything that they wanted to comment on about what we've said since the beginning of this? Okay.
I just wanted to quickly say that I really appreciate being able to share space with you, Andrew, because you're mildly famous, which is pretty cool. So I'm super excited to be here. And I also really appreciate you acknowledging the ways in which cisgender white men dominate kink spaces. That
Oh, it's the worst. I have such feelings about it.
I really appreciate that because historically, kink spaces were created by Black and brown, queer, and trans people, often with disabilities. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate you talking about that.
Thank you. Just to quickly touch on that, the more and more I do this work, the more and more I'm leaning towards the they, he pronoun usage because of my own discomfort with cis white men doming everything. And I am in some ways a cis white male person, but I feel like also saying like I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to engage with this like toxicity within this community, and my disability, because I'm perceived as so different within those spaces. Theyness was like a way to be like, oh, theyness allows me to be disabled, to be queer, to be like a whole different creature if I want to be around sex and disability. So I definitely have some privilege around my cisness and my whiteness and my other things. I feel like theyness has allowed me to push back against like the dominance of white cis men ruining everything about sex.
Anybody else want to comment on that? Okay. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna... Yeah, Vicky is dying too. Okay, it's not just me. Oh, different people, different bodies, different sexuality. I love it. And I love the way that everybody is able to express themselves through kink. My personal belief is that kink helps us find who we are and just amplify it. And I really love that.
Is that on a shirt? Can that be on a shirt? Can somebody make that? Has it been made already? Where do I buy it?
You're the one with the shirt shop. Let's do it.
I mean, all right.
Okay, well, let's move on to the panel then, because I've always got questions, like I said. And I think the first one that I wanted to ask was, how does your kink life empower your body? And I was going to shoot that over towards Adriana first. And Adriana, you can talk about that as much or as little as you want. And if anybody else wants to chime in after that, go for it.
Excuse me 1 second. Can I ask that when you come on that you introduce yourself and describe yourself for some of my low vision and blind folks that might be joining us tonight? Thank you.
So hi, I'm Adriana. I am a fat, disabled, non-binary kinkster. Covered in a lot of tattoos most of the time, so always enjoying that. But I kind of have a two-part answer to the question Maisha had. So the first thing that I thought about when I was looking at this question was the fact, so I've been in kink spaces the majority of my adult life. So I was probably in my early 20s, at least, when I started going into these spaces. And I actually was able to discover one of my disabilities because of these kink spaces. So I have an autoimmune disorder called hidradenitis suppurativa, and it has a very physical component where, my body's covered in these marks. And growing up, I grew up in a lot of shame, thinking that my body looked this way as a punishment for being fat. And it was just something that permeated and stuck with me until I started going to these events and started looking around and noticing other fat bodies that didn't look like this. And it was, I just kept taking that in and realizing that I was like, wait, no, this is something different. This is actually, maybe I can actually talk to someone about this, and being able to go and eventually learn that I had this condition and like being able to get proper treatment for it. Made a huge difference in my life, just being able to, see these other people's and just learning that my body was different and it wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad body. It was just a different body that needed something different. And, it needed, and now I have treatment for it. And, it's not something that goes away, but it is something that is vastly improved because I learned this. So that was the first thing that I thought about when I saw that. But also, I deal with chronic pain. I also have fibromyalgia, so I'm constantly dealing with pain in various spots. And I have days where it's the pain in my legs are so bad that I have difficulty walking. But I also know that within my kink, I do like to be beat, and I do like, I am also a masochist. But like, I think a lot of us who are masochists know that there's different types of pain. Not all pain is the same, and it gives me my own agency to be able to choose the type of pain that I'm subjecting myself to, the type of pain that I do enjoy, or even in some cases of feeling like an accomplishment. And I'm sure I've talked to other submissives about this as well as other masochists, of like, you almost feel accomplished that you're able to take so much, or you want to make your dominant proud of like, oh, I accomplished this, or being told that you're a good sub is always, brings warmth to your heart. So getting to enjoy that. and just, you know, or if my body's having a bad reaction, I'm having bad anxiety one day and I need to calm down. I live with my fiance, who's also my daddy, and I have a cage here in my house, you know, and he'll lock me in that for a little bit if I just need to go in there and kind of breathe and get away from everything. It literally just cuts out the rest of the world and lets me be separate. And for us, that is very much a kink thing of being able to cut out the world. But it's just something that's hugely helpful for me. I'm happy if anyone else has any thoughts on that one or questions. I know doing these over Zoom is different than in person. So
Yeah, I'd really love it if any of the rest of you could chime in with your own personal experiences or professional experiences, just about kink and how it affects your body.
Hi, I'm Lily, she, her pronouns. I'm a trans woman from Philadelphia, and I've been involved in kink for almost 20 years now. I mean, for me, it was a huge part of giving me a space to really start to externalize my transition. So that was huge. And being surrounded by people I knew and people who at least I felt cared about me really gave me an area where I was able to, you know, start getting my insides, my outsides to match my insides in a place where I didn't feel like the object of ridicule. I'm not exactly passing, so that was a really scary experience, and I don't think I would have been able to do it anywhere else. So as far as my body and kink, that's a huge one for me.
That really resonates with me, Lily. This is Vaughn. I am a man of trans experience. I am biracial, white, and Asian, and I have short brown hair. So I feel the same way about being a trans man, and also the intersection of masculinity of being of Asian descent and what that means in white America. So that is something that I really relate to about when I was first coming into my transness, and there's like this ooh-woo soft beanification of trans men, you know? And I was like leaning into that. And so I was a submissive for a while, and it was like being called like a good boy or like baby boy or whatever is very affirming of my gender. And now that I've been out as a trans man for many years, being called daddy is very affirming for me. So I would say I'm like a true switch probably, because it's depending on what my needs are. But being able to engage with your trans body in a cis heteropatriarchal world is so difficult. And kink was a way that I really connected with my body as a trans person, particularly and in vastly different ways, like pre-medical transition and post-medical transition. So that really resonated with me.
Hi, I'm Rachel Rose, she, her pronouns. I'm a white woman. I have enormous purple curly hair. I'm happy to be here with everybody. I love all the things that everybody's said so far. I think that kink is really empowering in like honestly countless number of ways. And I think one of the things is just seeing like, I've met so many other disabled and chronically ill people through like sex positive spaces, especially kinky ones, and just kind of hearing and talking to people, because I'm a huge extrovert. That's what I want to do with all of my time. And talking to people and hearing what their experiences and all the ways that they have found to like find ways to feel good in their body, even being chronically ill or having chronic pain or being disabled in different ways, in ways that like it often doesn't feel good to be present in your body. And another way has been that I also have ADHD, which isn't like my main chronic illness, but it's something that I've been told my whole life that I need to try meditating or mindfulness, because for a lot of people, including myself, that comes with a lot of anxiety. And honestly, the only time that I've really found a way to make that work is through kink, is like through sensation stuff or things that like actually quiet my mind rather than me trying to sit here and be quiet, which is never going to happen. And so I think that that's been really like both more in a physical way where kink has just been really helpful in finding new ways to explore things as I've become more chronically ill over the last like 5 or 7 years. And so much has changed with my body and learning new ways that feel like new ways that feel good to experience things. So I think there's a lot of ways it's been helpful for me personally.
I just want to say the being able to quiet your mind through kink is huge. I completely agree with you. Like trying to force myself to focus on something or calm down or be quiet in that, as opposed to like participating in one of my kink activities and like falling into a subspace and having my mind be able to go blank like that is incredibly helpful for me. So I hear you.
Yeah, I can even chime in on that. I have PTSD and bipolar disorder. My mind is always going a mile a minute, usually in 3 different places that I don't want it to go to while I'm trying to do the one thing right in front of me. And to be so consumed by an activity or an emotion or another person that is all my mind has space for is such a huge relief and so wonderful. I think kink is easier for me than meditation in terms of engaging everything. Because with meditation, I still have my brain going in all these different places and I have to try to control it.
I really agree with what was just said there in terms of the control piece, and kink for me has allowed me to control parts of my disability that I don't like, and being able to put on a harness and being able to do those things is giving me a way to take control back in my life when so much of it is out of my control. And it's really empowering for me in that way. But I kind of said that way before, so I don't want to go into the whole answer again.
Something Rachel said really called to me as far as dealing with ADHD and mindfulness through kink. One of my coping mechanisms with ADHD is just be constantly on and not able to really turn my brain off. And I'm a very subby sub who unfortunately gets to do a lot of service topping. But when I do get to bottom, that's pretty much a surefire way for me to be able to enter a quiet space within my head. You know, as some of the rest of you have said, it's very, very peaceful, and I don't really get to do it too many other ways.
I am getting lost in chat and I should be moderating. Why don't we move on to the next question? Because, well, I mean, there are a lot of things that we can talk about, but for now, let's talk to Rachel. Rachel, what do you see as the relationship between kink and disability?
So in thinking of this question, I actually came up with like several answers. And I'm guessing anybody else with a noisy brain here probably also could do the same. But I think the main thing for me is that it's a choice that you're making. So when you're chronically ill, and my chronic illness, the main one I have, like, I feel like they're like Pokemon, you got to catch them all. Like when you get one, you have a whole slew of them. But it's a rare disease called indolent systemic mastocytosis. And long story short, that just means my body has like allergic reactions to a lot of random things. A big trigger for me is fragrances and chemicals, but like exercise, strong emotions, like you name it, it causes an allergic reaction. And so there's a lot of stuff going on very randomly with my body that's not what I wanted. And so when I'm doing kinky things and engaging, you're making a choice about like the way that you want to experience being in your body in a more conscious way, more or less. And I think that, you know, with a lot of disabilities and chronic illnesses, you get a lot of pain that you're not really choosing to have. And so when I think for a lot of people, myself included, it's more empowering to be in a position to choose to have that experience. And like, it's a way of taking control back over your body in a lot of ways. And for me, that's personally like really, I'm a little bit of a type A control freak. So I really love having that kind of sense of control over what's happening with myself. In a less direct way, I also have found that since my main way that my chronic illness is triggered is through fragrances and chemicals, which is more common than what everybody thinks, but it also tends to be less understood because I have a pretty severe fragrance sensitivity. And it's not something that people are used to accommodating. So I've actually gone through the kind of experience of when there's not a global pandemic, hosting my own events. And so I run a business called Glittergasm Events in the Philadelphia area. And we, and in doing that, I've been able to create a space that's both safe for me and like, I really love extending it to other people and making it a safe space where people could explore things like their own comfort zone in their own own ways, and making sure it's as accessible as possible. Obviously, there are some limitations that we're trying to work around and haven't really figured out yet, but that's been really beneficial. And the last thing I thought of was that, weirdly enough, I've had moments where I had a kink thing planned, and for one reason or another, I've had a really bad allergic reaction at that moment, and I've taken all the medications I can, to the point where like I'm buzzing from like 5 different medications trying to calm these things down. And doing kink things has actually physically helped me get better in those moments. Doing rope stuff, it's really, for me, it's been like, because the way kind of like deep pressure therapy, it's almost like a weighted blanket effect, has actually, I think it helps calm your nervous system. And so it's been both physically helpful in those ways, and also just like emotionally in a bunch of other ways. So there's my very long answer.
Rachel, can you tell us a little bit more about the rope stuff?
Yeah, sure. So I don't have a ton of experience with it. It was something I was getting into exploring pre-pandemic, and then, you know, COVID happened. So what it was is that I have a friend who loves to rope top, and we had a space available that had rigs. And so in those moments, because there's so many people around and people come with products that they've used, and those always have fragrances, unless someone's made a very conscious effort to not have them. Sometimes it's really hard for me to be in a room full of people. And so even with my meds, it wasn't really calming things down. I think I'd had a bad mastocytosis week. And just kind of feeling, I haven't really figured out exactly how it works yet, to be honest with you. But for me, just kind of feeling the sense of like having a focus, and also having something that makes my body feel physically calmer in that way. You know, being calm doesn't necessarily get rid of the allergic reactions, but it does make it, not being anxious or stressed or overwhelmed helps make it not get worse, if that makes sense. It kind of stops it from being exacerbated. And so I think that in the combination of factors, that's been something that's been helpful on a number of occasions. It's unfortunate you can't just carry a rope rig around with you with like a friend who can do the rope, but you know, the way I can with meds, but in those moments, it's been really wonderful and helpful.
Is it okay if I add to that as like a rope bottom? I just wanted, yeah, it's kind of like having this like very, you get this restriction, right? That you're choosing to have. And especially in a safe environment, whether it's, you know, with whatever the relationship it is with the have at the top, is something that's been negotiated. You talked about this, and you know, I know sometimes for me, even when I've had someone topping me that I'm not in a relationship with, sometimes you know, I do have a partner who's also there with me, even just from a more, just you feel safe, secure, you're not going anywhere, you know, you don't have to worry about your mind running a mile a minute. It's very, very centering. I mean, we mentioned it before with some of the other mindfulness with it, but it can be just very centering, very cutting out the rest of everything, like a weighted blanket, like you're just getting this, you know, big immobilized hug from rope.
It's especially true because it's not voluntary. Once you're in it, you're there, and it removes the concept of choice for that. Like, I can't turn my brain off sometimes. I have to have it off by somebody else or something else.
Okay, so we have a few people saying they're now interested in rope play. How would you get started with that?
I can chime in really quickly. I have some experience with this. So I put it in the chat, but I will say out loud too that a good way to start is to practice at home by with your own body. So before you vet a rigger or a rope top. It's like, I think, a geographic colloquialism. So before you start vetting someone to do it, I would start practicing with yourself. And that kind of brings me to the concept of like self-dominating, which some people buy into and some people don't. Again, kink is a wide spectrum, but if this works for you. So practicing rigging at home on isolated parts of your body is a really good way to get started. A lot of people start with thigh harnesses. So just like creating a harness like somewhere on your body that is like small and contained. So like a thigh or like your forearm, or if you're able to, like across your own chest. There's like tutorials on YouTube and on other like sex education websites to practice rigging, and then just sitting in your rig at home alone so that you can ground your body in what it feels like to be in those ropes, so that you're kind of like prepared for when you go into a rigging space, so you kind of know what to expect. And then I would say too, if you have someone in your life that you can practice kink with, then have that person rig you at home as well, and you can kind of learn together before going into a rig space. So I would say that's a good place to start, is like practice on yourself first and see how it feels. Because in my own personal experience with people that I have done sex education with or been in kink spaces with, rope play is often something that people really love in theory, and then they try it and they're terrified once they're there. And it's because they didn't practice first, and then they went straight into a rig, and then now they're suspended and they're having a panic attack, right? So I really want to prevent that from happening for people. So yeah, try it on yourself first, see how the ropes feel. And there's also different textures of ropes. And I have texture issues like nobody's business. So for me, there's different types of textures of ropes that are used by riggers, different materials. So I would say explore different fibers, see what like feels good on your skin, what you can tolerate for a long time. And then all of that stuff, you have your wants and needs laid out before you go to a rigging area and vet a top. So that would be my advice for getting started.
Something I wanted to chime in with is that we've been using the term rigging a lot. Rope doesn't have to have suspension in it. Some of my best and most memorable scenes happen on the ground, and it's usually a lot more approachable. You don't have to go anywhere special for it. You can do it in the safety of your own home. And it's, you know, we see the pictures online and we see all these wonderful aerial suspensions and artistic expressions of rope, but it can be just as powerful, just as beautiful, and just as affirming to do it inside on the ground.
I actually had a fabulous evening once with a friend of mine. We were playing with rope for the first time. We'd gone to a class at this place in Philadelphia that a lot of us are familiar with called Sexploratorium. The main area is called Passional Boutique. And then if you go upstairs, there are a lot of toys and things like that. And that area is called Sexploratorium. And they have classes on how to do things that are related to sex or related to kink. And this was a rope class. And a friend of mine wanted to learn how to tie. And they said, hey, can I tie you? And I said, yeah, sure, whatever. Sounds like fun. Let's go. So we went, and they showed just basic, ways to tie a wrist or, legs and things like that. And my friend was really good at this. And the next thing you know, everybody else is still fiddling with knots. And I've got, one ankle bound and like my wrist bound. And my friend has me hopping around the classroom going, wait, I wasn't ready for this yet. And I mean, it was consensual because we'd negotiated before what I could do, but I really hadn't expected it. And it was hilarious. And I was laughing, my friend was laughing, the instructor was laughing. So you can do things that are very small. And they're still fantastically wonderful. It just depends on the mindset that you're in. Who you're doing it with sometimes matters. What that activity means to you matters. There's a lot that goes into everything you're doing.
I just want to add one small thing from like a safety aspect of like, make sure you have your safety shears for these. They have the, what are the, not ER, the people who drive the ambulance. The word is not coming to me right now. That EMT, thank you. Yes, the EMT shears that they have, you know, that makes it a little easier to cut. So that way having those, like you cut from your rope, as well as being aware of your pressure points of where the rope is hitting. You don't want to pinch a nerve. So just those are two safety things I want to mention.
I think that's especially important if you've got any disabilities that affect your body in specific ways, knowing where those things are in your body and being able to communicate them to your partner or being aware of them for yourself if you're tying yourself. And that goes for any kink. Andrew, you've been quiet. I'm going to nudge you here. You're muted.
I'm just listening to all the things that are happening. I'm like, wow, this is a great conversation. And plus, I didn't want to hog the floor. I wanted people to feel like they could talk
Hog.
freely. Can you, okay. And also, because my brain does a million things, can you repeat what I'm supposed to be answering?
So if you hear any weird lapping noises, that's my dog who has decided right now that he's terribly thirsty. We were just talking about the relationship between kink and disability. And then we just moved on to this natural evolution somehow into rope.
Rope is, okay, I'll just put it out there. Rope's not a thing I've tried because of my disabilities and my spasticity. It looks very sexy and it looks super fun, totally inaccessible for me. And I don't think there's any amount of accessibility that will make it accessible to me. So I'm fine with not exploring that. What kink means for my disability and how it relates to my disability, it's just me taking control over, like kind of Rachel said, over parts of my body that sometimes I have chronic pain. I'm learning more and more that not only am I disabled, I have cerebral palsy, but I also live with IBS and different kind of pain things that are popped up over the last few years that have been real fun for me to explore, but it allows me to be like, I'm in control somewhere. Let me show that through kink and through, like, I love being able to wear a harness. I love the harness man, which I can't lift my shirt off, but I would show you if I could. There's a tattoo of a harnessed guy on my chest. And I love that because it's expressions of kink that are not reliant on physicality. The harnesses maybe, but the tattoo not so much. If I have my shirt off and I'm with a partner, they'll see two things on my chest that show that I'm disabled. They'll see a tattoo that says "queer cripple" on my chest. Actually, three things. They'll see that tattoo. They'll see the guy in a leather harness in a wheelchair, and they'll see a unicorn in a wheelchair driving up a rainbow ramp. And I love those things because they're not necessarily kinky, but they are markers of like, if you're gonna play with me, you're gonna have to really quickly like get over the fact that I have a disability, and we're gonna have to confront your own ableism really quickly if we're gonna do this. And every time you look at my body, you're gonna have to see these markers of, oh yeah, he really is a disabled person that I'm with. I better get used to that.
So this actually ties together really well, because one of the things that I wanted to ask you specifically, Andrew, is how did your disability affect the things that you chose to do in terms of kink? And what would you recommend to other people looking to get into kink who have disabilities in terms of like finding out what works for them?
My disability affects everything in terms of my whole life. Like, it literally, when people say, don't let your disability define you, I want to be like, fuck off. It does too. Leave me alone. But also, like, you know, also, it totally defines what I can do because I can't do much physically. So I have to use my voice, and I have to use my words, and I have to use my communication to convey what I want, whether I'm being dumb or sub, whether I'm, you know, want to wear a harness, whether I want them to bite me harder, whether, like, I have to say all that and really be very, very specific about what I want and how I want things to go down. And so my disability totally affects what I can do. One of my dreams, and I'll be really blue here for a second. one of my dreams is to fuck a dude in a dungeon, and I can never do that. I mean, maybe I can one day, but right now I can't because most of the dungeons that I've encountered or heard about are not accessible and don't want to become accessible. One of my dreams since one of my like sexual fantasies since I was a teenager was like making out in a bathroom stall with the person. Like all those things that you see on TV, popular culture around sex that are just I could never do. So kink has nudged me firmly into like use your voice, say exactly what you want, ask for what you want, and use your voice as your like instrument of kink.
If I didn't have an agenda, and I'm wondering if we should throw it out the window, I'll let the panelists talk, tell me right now what they want to do. But I would take this moment right now to talk about communicating with your partners and how you do it to get what you want. Panelists, would you prefer to go along with the schedule, or do you want to take a moment to talk about that? We have some time.
I think it's a great thing to include personally.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I would love to talk about it, but I also do really want to hear from Lily about safety. So
why don't we let Lily talk first? I think that's a great idea, Vaughn. And then if we have time for it afterwards, hopefully, because I don't have much to say about the handbook, so Lily can go. Yeah.
Well, considering a lot of what I have to say about safety, the safety in our community revolves around the venue, personal communication or social currency, and good negotiations. And, in my own opinion, so it kind of dovetails really well with what we're about to talk about, because if you can't have a good negotiation, there's really not a way you can do anything safe. But safety is such a large word because, especially in this context, this is a disability panel where we can talk all day about accessibility, access to spaces. We could talk about how to, communicate with an event coordinator beforehand if you have something really serious. I hear Andrew saying they've never been able to go to a club or something and experience that. You come to Philadelphia, I'll make that happen for you. Not even a joke. Let me know, give me about a month ahead of time and I'll have it ready. But that's just one aspect of it. Then we got community safety, which also has a lot to deal with.
I think you froze. I think she froze. Did we all freeze?
No, I think everybody else is here. We're just waiting for Lily to come back.
Abada.
Okay.
There we go.
There I am. Sorry about that. My internet connection dropped out.
You were just too cool. It had to cut you out for a minute.
But yeah, do event promoters communicate with one another? Do people do walkthroughs with ADA accessibility and other types of sensory disabilities in mind? If you know members of your local scene or membership are going to have I don't know. Rachel brings up fragrances. Fragrances are very common inside most queer or gay spaces. People always thrown on a little bit too much musk. That can set people off. Your lighting, how many extension cords you have going around, how you orient your equipment in a space. All these things are more physical aspects. The esoteric stuff, such as communication between event promoters, word of mouth, being able to ask about missing stairs or problem members, feeling you have the ability to advocate for yourself and actually search out that information without being told you're causing drama. Those are also safety issues, and they're very important. But let's go back to negotiations. I really like that one.
Darling, tell us everything.
Oh, gee. Okay. So I can start out with negotiations. Negotiations are key both for determining your level of safety, how safe you can be, because there's actually no true thing as a safe space. It's safer. There's always a level of risk. We used to have what was it called before RAC? What safe, sane, and consensual. Now we're using RAC more often than not, which is risk-aware consensual kink. But yeah, you dictate your safety for not only by where you're going, but also how you negotiate and find people to play with. Long-term partners, pick-up play or otherwise. The ability to have a strong communication, dictate your boundaries, have them listened to, is key. And that requires communication skills and actively practicing these things. Sorry, there's dogs involved. Does anybody else have anything they want to say? Because I keep going.
Keep going. And if it turns out we have extra time, I might ask you to role play a negotiation with me as if we were playing for the first time.
Oh my goodness, that's never happened before.
I know.
Weird, strange. Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's start from the top. You're new to the scene. You're realizing kink might be something you're interested in. How do you find out what that is for you and then access these spaces? Good exploration of yourself. You can't have a good negotiation if you don't have a certain level of self-knowledge about you, yourself, what your wants are. Being able to do the internal work and figure that out, like what turns you on, what you're interested in. Is it sexual? Is it non-sexual? You can't really talk to somebody unless you're able to articulate them for yourself. And that can be, there's a finding period with this. It doesn't have to be perfect all at once, but like that's a good place to start. After that, it's be brutally honest is honestly the best advice I can give somebody. You're entering a space where people are routinely in very interesting predicaments. Very little that you could ever say is going to be odd. I actually want to do a class that's basically called Welcome to Kink. You are not the weirdest person in the room, because that is normally how I feel. But yeah, just be brutally honest. Do not be afraid to actually state what you want. Say it clearly. And if somebody has problems with that, either on their own personal level or just they're kind of a dick, that's a big red flag. You can find other people. There are plenty of fish in the sea. So that's a really great way to just start negotiations. The fine tuning is something that you'll find for yourself as you go further into your own journey. As with most things, just start off small, start with what you know about yourself, what you're absolutely sure of, and just like dip your toes in it until you can get the rest of your body wet. And wet is usually good. Let's see. Finding venues, finding places to go and explore this. FetLife is a thing. If you're not on Fet, FetLife is this basically Facebook for kinksters. It's just as horrible as Facebook can be, if not more so sometimes, but it's a good place for finding events and doing communications within the community as a whole, especially your local community. Word of mouth is what I believe is our social currency. So look for munches, look for other kinky gatherings, talk to your friends. The weirder your friends are, the more likely they're going to know somebody or know where to go. My entry to kink when I was a very, very, very odd young child, well, younger than I should have been, was through like goth nights and other alternatives nights, and just like talking to people and then like, oh wait, where's that? And this is back when you had to like call 1-800 numbers or like know somebody to be able to find out where things were. So this was a while ago, but now we have the internet. There's groups for it. There's local community groups. A lot of the larger cities have community centers. Your local LGBT organization will for sure know somewhere to point you. In our city, William Way is a great place because they also happen to host the Kink Night usually, post the plague. But they're really good ways to get involved. And then, like anything else, ask around, see how community members approach a space, what they think about it, and you'll eventually make your own judgment. Can I plug the thing I actually do in Philly, Maisha? Is that okay?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So I help run with the founding member, my partner, a bottoms advocacy group called BEAT, for Bottoms Educating and Advocating Together. We call it Philly BEAT. But spaces like that are really good places to meet people and start that personal communication that allows you to enter a space with some level of safety. Also, maybe find somebody to go with you as a friend, just like same way you would do a safe call on a blind date. Like a lot of what you would do on a blind date or just meeting somebody cold on the first time is good praxis for kink. Am I really going to keep on talking? Oh, geez.
No. Hey, I want to do something with you, and I want the other panelists to chime in as we do this. Can we pretend we're negotiating for the first time?
Rock, scissors, paper for top or bottom?
Okay.
Do you have a preference?
In this case, because of what I want to do, I want to be the bottom.
Okay.
But just this time.
Just this time? Okay.
Yeah. Because I don't want to make you be the top all the time. That's not fair. All right. So, do you want to play a scene together?
Sure. My name's Lily, she, her, service top extraordinaire. And your name?
My name is Maisha. I am very submissive, and I just want you to do anything you want to me.
So if I go and get my blowtorch and the barbed wire, you're going to be okay with that? Because that's over there. Are you sure? I don't think I'm comfortable with that.
That's the reaction that I wanted. Does anybody else have anything they want to add?
I think, oh no. Go ahead, Adriana.
I was just gonna say, yeah, like try to be at least a little bit specific. Like, you know, if you want to have some sort of umbrella of what you're into, and that way you can have, you know, some follow-up questions to narrow down to more specific in there, but have a general idea of what you're looking for.
Do you want to try it again?
Sure.
Hi, I am Maisha. I am a very hard top, and I'm looking for someone to play with. Would you be interested?
Yeah, let's talk about what that means to you and what some of your limits might be. So far as sensory or actual pain, whatever you're looking for, we can find that out.
Sure, I think that would be great. I mean, in terms of the types of kinks that I'm into, I am, you know, I've got 5 years of experience as a fire top, but I really am most interested in impact play. The only thing is I have, you know, a bad shoulder right now. I've got a torn rotator cuff. And so I really can't play for more than like 15 minutes a session.
Okay, that's more than reasonable. And we can definitely tailor this to areas where that won't be influenced. And we can have a lot of fun with that. Do you like stingy or thuddy pain? Do you have a preference, or maybe just we can start out small?
I mean, I always think it's a good idea to start out softer with something like deerskin and then, you know, try a different range of things. But what do you like?
Well, I personally like my hands. There's a lot of control that can be had with hands and smaller implements. Canes are usually a little bit sharp on the pain level for people, but I happen to have this wonderful deerskin flogger, which I will tell you feels like rain on your back when it's done properly. And I have a lot of control with it, and it would be really easy for me to avoid that whole rotator cuff area. there's also, you know, it doesn't have to be on your back. Other parts of your body, as you feel comfortable with, are also options.
What about you? Do you have any limits?
I don't like to cause harm. I'm a service top. I like to tailor the experience for each person. I really get a big jolt out of making somebody feel happy or get to experience things they maybe didn't get a chance to before or thought were denied to them. So if I can help you find a good time, I'm going to really enjoy myself doing it.
Okay, but well, we can probably work with that, but I need to get to the point that I'm crying. Otherwise, I won't really feel like I've got the release that I need. Is that something you're going to feel comfortable doing?
Maybe not on our first play together. That's something I could probably do, but I don't think it's going to be safe, especially if we only have 15 minutes. That ramp up to get you there to where your endorphins are getting to the point where it won't cause you real harm might be something we'd have to do a second time, so I have a better idea of where your levels are.
So maybe there'll be a second date?
If it works real well the first time, we'll definitely talk about it.
All right. Well, let's talk about aftercare, and then maybe we could try something out a little later.
Absolutely. Aftercare is really important, both for the bottom yourself, but also for me. I like to have a certain amount of closeness with people I'm playing with as far as after we're done, just to know that what happened was something that's good for them. I always bring blankets and snacks and a water bottle just in case there's like a little sugar drop, and I want them to have a good experience. I want you to have a good experience. And that's what gives me a good experience, because this is enlightened self-interest if it was anything else.
That's awesome. I just want hugs.
Oh, lovely. Any areas on your body as far as hugs afterwards that you don't feel comfortable with, or preferable ways to do touching and/or hugs?
During aftercare, I really don't like to be sexual. It doesn't matter if we do that during the scene, but I will tell you about all of my safer sex practices, and we'll have to have a separate negotiation before we do any of that.
I really appreciate that. I will say for myself, I don't really do anything sexual with people I've only just met in our first time playing with.
That's great.
My own comfort level.
That's perfect. That sounds good.
Great. Well, you take a minute to get yourself ready, and I'll go get my stuff organized. You can take a look at them beforehand and maybe see what interests you, and we'll pick a couple things out, and everything else will be put back in the bag, and we'll only play with the implements that you choose. And we're going to try and have a really good time. I'll go clean the space.
So do the panelists have any comments on what just happened there? Is there anything you would have added, or anything that, well, I don't know, comments?
Yeah, I would have loved to hear, like, maybe I'm biased, but I would have loved to hear more of a disability discussion in that. I would have loved to hear Lily maybe say to you like, hey, so just before we start, you had mentioned a little bit about pain. What are your hard and fast no's? Maybe also like, just to, if the person doesn't have a visible disability, you could say like, hey, so just want to check, do you have any invisible or visible disabilities that are not visible right now that I should know about, things that I should be aware about, things that can be more accessible to you?
Andrew is 110% right. Normally in my longer negotiations with playing with somebody, not only would physical and mental issues, because I've had people trigger on me in the middle of scenes, and I want to know about that beforehand so I can either notice it if they become nonverbal, but also like what is their safe plan afterwards? How do you calm them down? What do they need at that point? Also, I didn't discuss was red, yellow, green, so far as safety words to either slow down or stop the scene, which are key.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, I think one thing that we could have discussed too, if we'd had a full negotiation, and this pertains to what Andrew was saying, is, hey, what kinds of things do you need to set up the space? Especially if you're a person with a disability. Say you need something like, okay, I need help with getting my condom on, or I need this underpad laid out, or I need, to make sure that you have this first aid kit set right over here, or whatever it happens to be. A negotiation is a really good time to start talking about that. And the way I think of a negotiation is you can sneak some flirting in there, but it's also a really good time to talk about all of the stuff that is messy and kind of embarrassing, and you don't want to have to talk about it when you're having a good time. So just get it all out and up front and negotiate around it. And when I say negotiate around it, figure out a way to work with it before you really start enjoying things and then have to stop yourself. Although 9 times out of 10, that will happen sometime anyway, and that's okay.
I thought it was great for an on-the-spot negotiation, like off the cuff. I can tell that, we're a very professional, experienced group of people. I think the only thing I would say is it seems like an advanced level of negotiation that maybe people who are new to kink might not fully understand what you were talking about. So I think it's a great example for the ways that you can engage in kink in very structured ways. So for myself personally, when I was first getting into kink, it was with my boyfriend, at my apartment, looking stuff up, learning what negotiation actually means. So I think this is something that I struggle with as a sex educator. I slip into expert syndrome sometimes, where I just start talking about shit that I've been talking about for 10 years, and then someone will be like, hey, what does impact mean? And I'm like, oh, okay, let me roll it back real quick. So I think it would be awesome to do this again, which I know this is not the first time you've done it, but just to maybe talk about what can it look like in this non structured way, because I think that's a lot of people's introduction into kink and into power dynamics. It's often not in these scene type environments. It's often with a partner and they're like, I want to try something new. You know what I mean? So I would love to kind of talk about what a beginner's negotiation might look like.
That sounds like a lot of fun. So when you talk about beginners, especially within a community space or something like that, it's usually somebody who just wandered in, found it online, it's their first time, and they're looking around spellbound and they don't know exactly what to do. And they will eventually gravitate towards whatever catches their eye or whoever catches their eye, and either ask or start off a conversation before they ask. And that's usually where negotiations start, both in a community space, but also in the bedroom with your partner, where it's you both saw something maybe in a horrific movie that has the word gray in it and got curious. Hey, I like that. What do you think? I don't know. What do you think? It's kind of turning me on. Okay, well, let's hit the old Google and see what we can find. What part of that appealed to you? The basic conversations are always the best place to start when you're, starting out. Does anybody, Naisha, do you want to try a complete newbie or scene, or do you want to maybe one of the other panelists?
I was actually, okay, good.
Is it for me? I'd be happy to do it. I actually don't. So I have experience with kink, but it's generally more informal. So I don't have a lot of scene negotiation things. So if you want a newbie, I'm your girl.
Perfect. So let me set the scene for you. okay, let me ask the panel, do we want to do this as from like a partners level or a community scene level, beginners? Like partners just exploring this in the comfort of their own home, or people who may have wandered into a space?
Let's do partners.
Okay, great. Rachel, you've been reading some interesting literature and watching things like any other healthy human being who may or may not want to do, and something sparked your interest. You go to your partner, lucky person that they are, wave them a hand, and you want to explore those things. Pretend that's me. Ask me a question or start off and I'll follow through.
Hey, Lily. So I've been reading some stuff and I have kind of had it really hot, like, some impact play stuff, like when people, use things and different sensations kind of hit each other a little bit. I'm not sure. I think I'd like both being the person hitting the person and the person not hitting and being hit. Would you be interested in maybe exploring that with me?
Oh, wow. You mean like spanking?
Yeah, like exactly like that.
Oh, you see that a lot in like some movies and some other movies that's kind of hot. I don't know if I'd want to be the spanker or the spankee, but yeah, what made it interesting to you? Because for me, it's just like, I like the idea of somebody kind of giving me a smack on the ass and just feeling that swat. It's kind of like a control aspect. It's like a correction.
Yeah, I think for me, so it kind of sounds really fun to be the person doing the spanking. And then also I think like as the recipient of that, I kind of like the idea of like different sensations. I know in the past that's kind of helped my brain quiet down a lot. Like when there's like an overwhelming amount of different types of sensations, it's like really, I love the way it makes me feel. So yeah, I'm really curious about it.
Yeah, I think we could definitely. I mean, my nails are getting pretty good this time of year, so I think we can do a lot of things. Like I do like scratching on all over you, so that would be a lot of fun. And though I have some hangups with the idea of hitting somebody I care about, we can definitely talk about that. I think I'll be okay as long as I know it's something that you're going to enjoy, because that's going to kind of make me enjoy it.
Maybe we can, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh no, just like real life. Let's talk over one another. It's great.
sounds very realistic. I was gonna say maybe we could do it as some kind of like sex kink lab type thing. So like so it doesn't feel so overwhelming. We can just try out and see what we like, and like not make it feel too intense.
I like that. I'm thinking of all the things in our kitchen that might just be really interesting. Those egg beaters look neat.
We got that new spatula the other day,
with the silicone, that's going to be a lot easier to clean off. Yeah. Let's start off slow, and you let me know how you're feeling, and we'll see what works good for you, and then we could turn around and give me a try.
That sounds great.
Definitely spicing things up.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. Maybe the internet can help us. I bet you the internet has a lot to say about this cultural thing.
I bet there's a lot of info on there we could get, probably from I saw this panel recently. I bet you a lot of those people on there probably have websites with great resources on there.
Yeah, let me wander into the kitchen, and maybe you should go back to the bedroom and see if you can get a little bit comfortable.
That sounds great. It's gonna be fun.
Yay.
In fact,
and see.
I'm so sad that we are now getting close to time, because I would love to see Andrew role play a negotiation. And I'm dying to know what you're saying right now, Andrew, because you're muted.
I keep muting because the Zoom etiquette is to not. Anyway, I'm here now. That's all new to me, but sure, I can do that. I can do one.
Yeah.
I would you want me to be the? Am I new to what? Who? What's my role?
I mean, I could definitely bottom.
Cool. All right. Um. So does that mean that you would be asking me the questions about?
Uh, let's pretend that we've already met. We already established like a friendship or acquaintanceship
Okay.
where you're comfortable having these things. So we're not like this is already on the table in some way, shape, or form. So we're not starting off from complete scratch.
Okay.
Um, I know for me, I'm very service oriented. So the idea of providing service or being told to do things is a big turn on for me.
Yeah.
And mental domination and control are big. Physical control is very, very big, but I'll give you that to start with. And oh, Andrew, I know we've been having this wonderful coffee date, and I just wanted to broach the subject of like maybe maybe I could serve you coffee in a fairly ornate manner. Like, how do you like your coffee? How do you like it served?
I like iced coffee, and I
Ice?
like it served. I like it served naked.
I mean, I could do that in the comfort of your own home.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because my home is the most accessible area, so yeah, we'd have to go there. I wanted to ask you, Lily, do you have any? Have you ever worked with anybody with a physical disability before in your service experience?
Yes, I had a um, I had a partner many years ago who had cerebral palsy. It only affected the lower part of their body. They wore braces and used crutches, but um, that gave me a little bit of experience with it. But also, I have some chronic pain issues, so I know my own body and some things I'm just not able to do.
All
I'd
right.
love to talk to you more about what's like where your areas are as far as what's comfortable for you and um, I don't know. Physical things aren't off the menu, but visual is also there as well. I can be very alluring.
Visual work that works for me because I can't do a lot of stuff physically, and so if you're comfortable, Lily, I would love to explore me using my dominant side through my voice to activate your service side if that's comfy for you.
Oh yes, sir.
I like that. All right, well that works for me. I also wanted to give you the space to because we're negotiating this. I want to allow for it to be a free flow of discussion. I want to ask you like, do you have any questions about my disability that you are thinking in your head but are afraid to ask out loud? I want to give you space to do that.
Well, I would like to know if any sort of touching, like I really like the service aspect of it. I'd like to kind of keep things. Let's keep it about like soft R rated. So I'd like to know about sensory input for you, touching as far as like above the waist, shoulders, things like that, things that make you feel comfortable and also make you feel good. Um,
Yeah,
that nice.
yeah, I can answer that. Touch for me is really important because most of my touch is done by caregivers most of the time. So I really enjoy touch that is whether through acquaintanceship or friendship or partnership that is not medicalized. So any kind of touch above the waist on the arms is would be great, and I'd love to do that.
Hmm. On that note, considering my service bent, are there any sort of personal care things that I could do for you that maybe I could turn into a little bit more fun than they normally might be?
Do you want? I mean, I'm thinking about like help in the bathroom, help in the shower, stuff like that, because I only get those at certain times of the day with my caregivers. And again, they have to come in wearing gloves and wearing all these very medicalized, sterile parts of their job. So it might be fun to explore those things in a kinky but safe environment with you.
Okay, the idea of a sponge bath sounds pretty hot to me, and
I'm there for that.
I'd have to ask, like, as far as getting you in and out of your chair, I noticed you have a lift and your bathroom is well equipped. I might need some walking through ahead of time just to know what I should be doing so I can do it safely. Your safety and your physical health is my first priority, and I wouldn't want to hurt you accidentally.
Yeah, and I'd love to walk you through that.
You can definitely make it sexy while we say it.
So you want me to? All right. Yes, I can totally walk.
This is killing me. This is killing me. I have to stop. I have to stop us because we're going to lose the interpreters in just a couple of minutes.
Fair enough.
But after this is all over, feel free to continue the negotiation. I just wanted to let everybody know that in addition to this, we do have a handbook that we can give you, and it goes through a few different things that might be helpful for you, especially if you're getting started. And it goes through successively a little bit of like, the basics of how to practice kink and information on how to explore your body, and then considerations on how to build a safety plan. We have a really fun checklist of different kinks that you might enjoy practicing. And let me tell you, I have had fun in the past looking through that checklist with my partner going, oh, that looks fun. Oh, I've had fantasies about this. Which one? How do you feel about that? And it has radicalized our sex life. So, and let's see, what else do we have? At the end, we have a bunch of questions that will kind of bring everything together and help you draft up your own plan to your sex life or your kink life or both. So if you are interested in getting a copy of this, please email info@disabilitypridepa.org. And that will be available to you at any time. So Vicki just posted it, info@disabilitypridepa.org. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. I wish we had more time. I always have fun with this, and hopefully we can do more in the future. Vaughn, did you have something you wanted to add?
I was just going to quickly ask if panelists felt like comfortable dropping their emails for collaboration. I know that those of us who are panelists are on an email together already, but if folks feel comfortable, if they want people in the audience to be able to contact them directly outside of Disability Pride PA, I just thought it would be cool for us to drop that if we wanted to. Obviously no pressure, but I'm gonna put mine in case you want to connect with me about sex ed related things. But.
And you might want to, if you guys want to get in touch with me, I am at Touched by Desire, all one word, on FetLife. So you can find me there, Touched by Desire.
Love it. Thank you, Maisha, for organizing another amazing panel. I have to tell you that this is probably the best thing that we do. I have so much fun. I have learned so much today that I am very excited about. So, and I've made some great connections to talk to some folks afterwards. So I hope everybody has here. Thank you to my panelists for joining us tonight. I absolutely loved it. Always to our ASL interpreters, because woo, it's a lot. they have earned their money today. Woo, that's a lot. And I must say, it is, as soon as somebody would say something, I had to look down at the interpreter to see what it looked like. Which I just thought was just too funny. So, Izzy, do you have any last words?
I just wanted to thank you all for being vulnerable and like going through those negotiations, because it really, like, I am like someone who has been like on the fringes of kink for a long time and like looking at it from afar. So like just gaining all this wisdom, it helps me to feel more comfortable like navigating those conversations. And I hope it helps other people who are in the audience like me, like so much wisdom. And I really appreciate you putting this all together. So thank you so much, Maisha, and to the panelists.
Yes. And thank you everybody who showed up tonight. If you missed some of it or you had to jump off or you jumped in late, the entire conversation is going to be on the Disability Pride PA YouTube channel, hopefully in the next 2 weeks. I'm hoping to take just a little break after all of this goes off. Tomorrow, don't miss at 12 o'clock for lunch, brunch, whatever you call it on Sunday. We're going to be talking to my friend, Amani Barbarin. A lot of you know as Crutches and Spice. I love, love, love that person. And then at 7 p.m., we're going to be doing a really great first time conversation about faith and disability. So check out our website, disabilitypridepa.org, for more information and for the links for tomorrow's episodes. And remember, we still have 4 more days of Disability Pride Virtual PA. Woof. We are 6 down, everybody. I'm so excited. So thank you again. Have a great night. Love you all.
Round for Vicky and Izzy. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks,
That's
everybody.
fun.